All right. Hello, everybody, once again to another session of the Health Innovators. I'm so excited today to be sitting virtually across from Dr. Sophia Yen of Pandia Health. Welcome and hello. And just to flash so that everyone knows who I am, I'm Donna Coriel, the creator of SoMeDocs and the creator of this series. And again, this is Dr. Sophia Yen. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your training?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Dr. Sophia Yen. My mother says claim all your titles. So I guess technically MD, MPH as well. I went to MIT for undergrad where I did a BS in biology, and at MIT, nothing is bigger than the cell. So all about the cell. And then went to UC San Francisco, one of the top medical schools in the world, and then Children's Hospital Oakland for 3 years of pediatrics residency, and then back to UC San Francisco for 3 more years, specializing in adolescents and young adults, what we call sex, drugs, rock and roll, a little acne, and some sports medicine. And then to round out all of my degrees in the Bay Area, went to UC Berkeley for my master's in public health, concentrating on maternal child health as well as pediatric obesity, and then finally landed at Stanford, where I'm currently a clinical associate professor in the Department of Pediatrics in the Division of Adolescent Medicine. I've also had the privilege to serve as the president of the Northern California chapter of Society of Adolescent Health and Medicine in the past. And then I'm currently on the American Academy of Pediatrics section on Adolescent Health Executive Committee. Love adolescent health, love preventing unplanned pregnancy, love sharing with the world, #periods optional.
Fabulous. What an accomplished mouthful. Congratulations on all of that. That is just fabulous. Absolutely. I love that the innovators that I feature are accomplished. That is so fabulous. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about your innovation, and then we're going to actually dive into who you are because we want to know about the human that's behind the innovation. So
the 2 innovations, number 1 is Pandia Health. We purposely chose Pandia, the Greek goddess of healing, light, full moon. And then also I made up the definition, pan is every, dia is day. So we have you covered every day. Set it and forget it. Let Pandia worry so you don't have to. And it was born of personal necessity, but also just trying to help women. So my friend and I were like, how do we get young women involved in reproductive health? And I was giving a talk to a bunch of physicians. Why don't women take their birth control? And one of the top reasons was they didn't have it in their hand. They didn't have time to run to the pharmacy every single month for 20, 40 years of their lives at the exact same time period because the insurance company won't let you go greater than 7 days ahead of time. And those of us that are responsible, we usually run out on Sunday. So we'd like to go Saturday, Sunday before and fill our prescription. But the insurance company is like, I'm only going to let you do 7 days ahead of time. And so you have to come back Monday. And we're like, no, we don't have time for this. And so that's why we created Pandia Health. Never run out of birth control on our watch. Set it and forget it. Let us worry so you don't have to. And as the only women-founded, women-led, but more importantly, doctor-led company, we work with doctors' offices. You write the prescription. We're just here to do the delivery. We can also write the prescription in 13 states currently, but more importantly, we can deliver to all 50 states. And we take almost all private insurances. And if no insurance, no problem. Just $15 per pack for most birth control pills. And that's, quite economical. We've come up with the line, it's less than 50 cents a day. So that's innovation number 1. Innovation number 2 is my new passion mission. And that is #periods optional. Anybody with a uterus that's bleeding 1 week out of 4, know that we have the technology to make that optional. And by making it optional, you can decrease your risk of ovarian, endometrial, and colorectal cancer. You can decrease landfill. And the number 1 cause of missed school and work in women under the age of 25, bad, evil periods. So if we can decrease or turn off those bad, evil periods, we can increase women's productivity, both at work and at school, and our contributions to the world.
I love that you identify a problem and in the same excerpt you also solve it with your innovation. That is just such a great pitch. Have you practiced your pitch a lot?
I have done it a lot because I've had to, go out for funding for my company. And so I've also, done the pitch for just the value prop of set it and forget it. Let Pandia worry so you don't have to. Anytime I go to a restaurant, I do checkout at Zara or Sephora or Victoria's Secret or wherever I go, there's a person with a uterus, which is everywhere. I'm telling them about Pandia Health. And I've done it so much that my 11-year-old can do my pitch because she's seen me do it so much. And she's like, thank goodness for COVID. My mom hasn't been out anywhere. I don't have to hear that pitch anymore. But COVID's down. I've got my vaccine. I've got my condom bag and I'm out pitching again.
You've got one of the facets of branding down pat, and that's consistency. So that's great. I actually love hearing that. The physicians were having a hard time with the consistency because we're so used to needing to be creative, and creativity is so important. But when it comes to branding, when you get it right, consistency is so important. So good for you. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and get to know you, because I'm sure that a lot of people are interested in finding this out. So who's the you behind the white coat?
I think just, being Asian American, growing up, your choices were being a doctor, an engineer, or, I forget, an accountant or something like that. And I love people and I love science. And so if I just love science, I'd go do bench work and do the PhD and go for the Nobel Prize. But I love people and I love science. And that's what brought me to medicine, is that every single person has their own story. And I want to leave the world better than I found it. And so by listening to your story, providing the best possible care. And so at Pandia Health, we talk about expert care by expert physicians. And so we proudly list all of our physicians, first and last name, all of their academic credentials, and then why they're passionate about making women's lives better. And that's where I've come from, is just, I love science, I love people. The two come together in medicine. And this company is like the culmination of my life work of preventing unplanned pregnancy, of making women's lives better, and bringing that on a national scale to women's doors. I like to say we bring birth control to wherever you have internet and a mailbox. Doesn't get easier than that.
Amazing. Amazing. Can you run us through some of your day, maybe like the interesting bits?
I think, being a startup CEO, you have the greatest highs and the lowest lows. And being a physician, we are adverse to risk. And so the startup world is absolutely about risk. And the startup world is about ups and downs. But what the two come together under medicine, and that, to be a pre-med and to be a resident, you do whatever the heck is necessary to get into medical school. You do whatever the heck is necessary to protect and save these patients' lives. And the same thing in the startup. I do whatever the heck is necessary for my startup to succeed. And one example I give is to get close to a VC. I went to a Soul Cycle class, and I am an absolute couch potato. And I have allergies. I don't go outside because if I do, there's pollen and it's all sorts of horrible. And I went to Soul Cycle, and this was not a basic Soul Cycle. This was an advanced Soul Cycle. They didn't tell us any of this ahead of time. And so I sit in the back because I know it's going to be bad. And it's an hour of basically running from a tiger. And I've never sweat from every pore of my body, but at some point in this running from a tiger for 60 minutes, my body just went, poof, and every pore had sweat. So I was just saying that I will do whatever's necessary to make this startup succeed. However, what differentiates us, I'm the only CEO of a birth control company that has taken the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. And as long as I'm CEO, we will always tell our customers what's best for their health, even if it doesn't help our bottom line. Because I will make money for my investors, but I don't have to do it pushing stuff that you don't need. And I can't say the same of my competitors.
Fabulous. And I actually, as you're speaking, noticing that your necklace is a uterus. So yes. That is so cool. Where can one get one of those?
Yeah. So we got it through, what were they? They've changed their names. It's about Uterus, and it's a pro-reproductive rights organization by Liz Winstead, but it's escaping me right now. And if you made a donation, which was awesome, then they gave you this uterus necklace. But you can also find it on by that person she's renamed it Abortion AF, and it's Abortion Action Front, but other words could fit in Abortion AF. And yes, you can get this necklace on Etsy.
Okay, fabulous. Good to know. All right. Have you had a special interactions in your life that has helped shape these current ventures?
Yeah. So I think, the moment that stuck out for me is being a pre-med. I worked at Planned Parenthood. I was a volunteer. I've always believed in women and reproductive rights and contraception and comprehensive sex ed. And I was a pregnancy results counselor. So I sat there and took the urine, ran it, looked at the results, and then gave all options counseling. Do you want to continue the pregnancy, continue and give up for adoption, or do you want to terminate the pregnancy? And I was 15, and I ran a pregnancy test. One for me was for the 13-year-old, and it turned back positive. And I was like, this is going to totally change this person's life. And what is her decision? And she chose to continue the pregnancy, and just to see how the two paths diverged. The 13-year-old who didn't have access to comprehensive sex ed, who didn't have access to birth control to prevent unplanned pregnancy, who didn't have a mentor to inspire her that she could be more and not have sex at age 13, and that to value herself, to ask her partner to use a condom, to use birth control, all of that, versus me, who had access to Planned Parenthood because I was volunteering there, and who could get birth control, and who wanted to be a doctor, had aspirations, had mentors, and would go off and be a physician. And she would be a teenage pregnancy, another statistic, unfortunately, with high risk for another teenage pregnancy for her young person, but also just all the, maternal comorbidities that come with being a 13-year-old pregnant teenager. And so that was what struck me. And it was like, if we can get comprehensive sex ed, if we can inspire young people to be bigger. So co-founded a nonprofit, all the credit to my sorority sister, sheheroes.org, free online videos highlighting what women can be, targeting 3rd to 8th graders, grabbing them before they trim their tree of possibilities. And now providing birth control wherever you have internet and a mailbox, and providing tons of free education on YouTube, Insta, TikTok, Facebook. Follow us on all of the channels, supervised by a physician who's passionate and who's a woman who has a uterus, who has 2 daughters. That's the beginning.
Great. And I'm assuming you're not sure what happened to the 13-year-old. Okay. All right. What's a really interesting part of your life that could be great to share?
I think the key is, my mom taught me, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think it's really hard to remember that in all aspects of your life. So I just want to share that. If you don't ask, you don't get. And what's the worst that could happen? They say no. And so I was like, hesitant to send an email to an investor because I remember he had like certain requirements, but I wasn't sure. And I was like, well, if I don't ask, I'm definitely not getting. So let's just ask and clarify. And he's like, yeah, these are the parameters. And I was like, okay, we'll come back when we hit those parameters, And the other part is, if you need help and you don't ask, you're not going to get, And if you know friends that can help you, I think oftentimes women, minorities, we just don't want to ask for help. We're too embarrassed, ashamed. But again, for my company, I'll do whatever the heck's necessary. So forget shame, forget almost dying in Soul Cycle, whatever. I have to actually wake up. I'm not a morning person. I have to get up at 4 a.m. to do a grand rounds on the East Coast. I was like, that is just horrible. But again, I'll do whatever's necessary. And we've learned that in medicine, to do whatever the heck's necessary to get the job done.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, shifting gears to something a little bit lighter, we want to know if you're team coffee or team tea, and then we want to know specifics.
So I am team tea mainly because I think in high school I went on a caffeine high for a week and I got so much done. But at the end of the week, I was like, ugh. And so now I cannot take the amount of caffeine I think that comes in coffee, though I love coffee ice cream. I love Vietnamese iced coffee. It's kind of more dessert than really a coffee, and coffee candy. And then I like tea because I love the whole English breakfast, the tea, the afternoon tea. So I've done tea in England, I've done tea in Vegas, I've done tea at the Ritz, at the Peninsula, love that situation. And then specific tea, English breakfast is just, or Earl Grey, part of the Trekkie in me, Earl Grey, hot, right? Earl Grey. And then oolong, being Asian, Chinese, Taiwanese oolong tea. So one of those three.
Fabulous. You like a variety. That's great. All right. Give us a resource. And it doesn't have to be a book. Everyone always thinks it has to be a book. It could be a book, a podcast, or a TV show that you're just enjoying as a human.
Yeah. So Jen Gunter wrote the Vagina Bible and the Menopause Manifesto. And she also, I think, has a TV show or something like that, and probably a podcast as well. She's an OB-GYN. And I just love her attitude. She's the one that basically took on Goop and their jade egg, and that is her claim to fame. I'm reading her Menopause Manifesto, and as a physician, I'm like, nah. But like the opening line was like, here's my Yelp review of menopause. And I love that attitude. I love that thought. And I love what she wrote for that. And it's like, the sex is not so great. I was like, this is the sex was dry. There you go. I think that's great. With respect to reproductive rights, I love Ms. Blog. I think people have forgotten that Ms. Magazine exists. It's the first feminist magazine. It's still out there. It's in print. But they also have an amazing blog. I'm very impressed with Teen Vogue, like with respect to reproductive rights. I generally ban all fashion magazines from my household because I have 2 daughters and I don't want them to develop body image or stuff like that. But Teen Vogue on the internet and their reproductive rights coverage, whoever's doing it, is doing amazing, impressive stuff, such that I might like Vogue. And then Elle recently covered our hashtag periods optional. So I have to give a shout out for Elle. And then in terms of startup, I love Arlen Hamilton. It's about time. I've got this on my desk as a Bible, just so inspirational to me, what she's done, what she's doing. And she's one of our investors.
Fabulous. Fabulous. All right. We now are nearing the end, and we'd like to know, not because we want to highlight your weaknesses or your pitfalls, but we'd like to learn from the things that you maybe did wrong or learned from yourself.
Yeah. So in the startup world, I would say get everything in writing. You start and it's all, let's make this, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. I trust you, you trust me, and you're like, well, it's kind of like a prenup, you don't want to get it. But to me, it's like Murphy's Law. If you don't get it, then something will happen and you'll be sorry that you didn't get it. And if you do it, then nothing will happen because you laid it out in the front that nothing would happen. And so that would be tip number 1 is, get everything in writing. But 2, even if it's in writing, don't let somebody pressure you into making an immediate decision. Be like, hey, I'm going to go consult my lawyer and get back to you on that, or I'm going to think about it. Nothing really ever has to happen now on a phone call, which happens a lot. And then other pitfalls and weaknesses, I hear it a lot, but it's really hard to do, which is hire slowly, fire quickly. And I just don't like firing people. And so I'm like, just one more month. And right. Then they're eating your money and your bottom line. And you're just like, and we had an issue and it was so ugly at one point. And I was like, I can't fire her because she's doing so much. And if she does, then we'll be devastated. But the drama that was happening when she left, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I was like, wow, so much, less drama there. So I think that if you can do it, hire slowly, fire quickly, check people's references. But sometimes you don't know until you work with them and you try them out,
Absolutely. That's great, great advice. Thank you for that. Well, this has been great. We're going to close off with an ask from you. So if you could ask one thing of those people that are listening, what would it be?
Please share with everybody you know, #periods optional. Go to pandiahealth.com/periods optional. Anybody with a uterus that's bleeding 1 week out of 4 will thank you for sharing this important information. On the bottom is my TEDx talk on the science and safety of no periods, fewer periods, or just periods when and how frequently you want to decide them. And then also share Pandia Health, the only women-founded, women-led, doctor-led company in birth control delivery. And when you shop, ask who is the CEO, ask who is the founder, what are their values, and if all things being equal, choose the one that's female-founded, female-led.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so, so much for being a part of this Health Innovators series. It's been really great talking to you, and I wish you the best of luck, and thank you.
Thank you so much for highlighting innovative physicians.